final redemption. Redemption being the return of Am Yisrael to its full national life in the land of Israel, to bring our collective soul to full expression, having the temple, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court, prophecy, and the kingdom. And what is the content of that national life source, that neshama? The divine ideal for all of creation, the blessing for all of creation, all of mankind, all of the world. It says, the Rabbi say, that the redemption of Israel is redemption of God, as if His name, His ideal, His will that it wishes to, again, for the purpose of all of creation, to bring such a blessing to all. It's not our private salvation for the Jewish people. That is the vehicle to bring such a good through the divine, absolute, infinite good, the name of God, to bring to expression. And we saw in Yechezkel 36 how the redemption comes in stages. And the first stage was the coming back to the land of Israel and gathering the exiles. And we went at length a little bit to show what it says there. The reason why it comes is even if you're not worthy, even if you're not deserving, what does it say? I'll bring it for His name's sake. I'll bring it for my name's sake. In other words, for my name, the ideal of the creation is now at stake here. For your presence in the land of Israel isn't just local kingdom, sovereignty, that you should have freedom. This is the vehicle that actually, again, lets God's name, this neshama, our inner thought, to be exposed and revealed fully. So that we went to length to show that that's a principle, a theme throughout the whole Tanakh, all of the Bible, our prayers. We showed how, for your name's sake, if we're not worthy, we're not deserving, but what's at stake here is so great, is beyond that. There's a level that is beyond our individual worthiness or not, or lack of, but rather for the sake of the divine ideal, for your name's sake. So that's what we saw in Yechezkel 36. But it wasn't so clear what the stages are. We saw that there's coming back to the land, and then I'll sprinkle this waters of purification. I'll give you a new heart, a new spirit. Some enigmatic terminology. What does that mean? And a sprinkling of waters of purification. So now we'll go on to the next chapter in Yechezkel, which maybe give us a glimpse and more understanding what those stages are. And by the way, we saw that in Yechezkel 36, it says the fact that you're in exile is not just that you're now suffering or persecution. It could be a luxurious exile, but the very fact of exile, we saw that my name is at stake, right? You'll desecrate my name, my holy name. The goal of creation requires this, like we mentioned, two pieces of metal that conduct. The Jews in Eretz Yisrael are this conductor that God created such that is how this light, good, godliness comes to this world, intersects what we call the three-dimensional world that we call the reality. That beyond this world, that meets this world, comes into this world, to raise this world beyond this world. That's in the land of Israel. If the Jews are outside the land, that in itself constitutes a desecration of my name. And therefore God says to Yechezkel, therefore I'm going to bring them back to the land in order to bring my name to expression. But again, now we'll start with Yechezkel 37, the famous prophecy also of the final redemption. So I have it in Hebrew. You have it? Everyone has it? Yechezkel 37. Hayta la yad Hashem. Right? God says Yechezkel says the hand of God was upon me and took me and placed me betoch habika. He placed me in this image of this valley that was full of bones. It took me around, saviv, vinei, rabot ma'od al pnei habika. And there were many, many full of bones. This valley totally full of bones. Vinei yeveshot ma'od, very dry. Thus the name of the prophecy. It's called the famous dry bones prophecy. Vayomer Elai ben Adam. That's what Yechezkel is called, this title that God calls him, you son of man, when he speaks to him. You son of man, can these bones come back to life again? Look around this valley, dry, petrified bones, nothing. They said, lifeless, dried out. Can they come back to life again? And I said, you're God, you're the boss here, you know, what are you asking me? Vayomer, what God indeed says to him, prophesies to these bones. V'amart alehem, say to them, ha'atzamot eveshot shimud, new bones, listen to the word of God. Ko amar Hashem Elokim, thus says God to these bones, Hinei ani mivi bachem ruach michitem, I'll bring into the spirit of life, and you shall live. Indeed, you will come back to life. How? V'natati alechem gidim. I will put upon you, what I say, sinews and ligaments, basar and flesh, v'karamti lechem or, the external, the epidermis, I'll put layers and layers of the muscle tissues and all the thing, and I'll bring you back. V'natati b'chem, I put the spirit of life in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am God. This resurrection of these dry, dead bones. That's what he was told to talk to and say to these bones. V'ni beiti kesher tzuveti. And I prophesied, I said to these bones what I was commanded to do. And as he's doing so, vahikol, there was this noise, ki navi, when I started to prophesy and say these words, hine rash, there's this noise, this clamor. V'tikru atzamot elem atzmo, all the bones came together. Making a big noise, right? All these thousands of bones, like the song, how does it go? The leg bone connects to those older people here, they remember. Right, bones, all these bones coming together, this noise, this great clamor. V'raiti, v'ner, and indeed I saw that it was gidim. How do they translate that? Gidim, the sinews and ligaments I saw, and then the flesh came upon them. And flesh, and again, the total layer, external layer of skin also came upon them. Before that, actually, when they come bone to the bone, what do we have at that stage? The bones come together. What do we call that in English? The skeleton. And then he sees the skin and the muscle, all the tissue of the body. V'ruach ein behem. But there's no spirit of life. What do we call that? No longer bones together, a skeleton. Now they're a regular body, but with no life, no ruach. A corpse. But look at that emphasis. V'ruach ein behem. There's no spirit. The prophecy was, you're going to have all these stages of flesh and whatever, and the spirit of life will come into you. But here the prophecy stops. He says the prophecy, and it goes so halfway. In other words, the bodies are there, but they're corpses. Vayomer Elai. And then God comes to the prophet again and says to him, speak to the ruach, the spirit, and say to the spirit, now come into, from the four corners of the earth, whatever, the spirit, the four directions, to come into these dead, and they will come back to life. Stage 2, we see here, the first stage stopped. It required a booster. Another said, now go and talk to the spirit, and then I again prophesied as I was told, commanded, and came into them the spirit, vayichyu. They came to life, v'yamdu al haraglehem chayil gadol mod mod. And they stood up on their feet, a great army, a great mass, giant army of people here. So here we see that there were two stages. Because one, again, it was supposed to go from A to Z. It was supposed to go from the body built to the spiritual, everything, one process, but it stopped. And then another stage, 2, to bring it to completion, to the spirit of life. So at this point, how would you define those two stages? In very simple English. The first stage was what was built? The body, the physical. And the second stage? The spirit, right? The spiritual. So here we see these two stages of redemption. Of the physical first, which prepares the receptacle, prepares the body to receive that spirit. But first the body is built, the bones come together, and then you have a receptacle. Now that spirit of life has to have something to, to reveal itself through upon, as a conduit. So those two stages, but then the question is, what is this referring to? In verse 11, Vayomer Elai ben Adam. Now God comes back and tells the prophet, Hatzamot Eile. What is this referring to? Kol Beit Yisrael Hema. What does that mean? You have it in English. You're reading. You're following.
All the house.
This is referring to the redemption of Israel, the whole house of Israel. The truth is, as we'll see, maybe the commentary, the Malbim, that it has a double reference, so to speak. The simple metaphor is that how the future resurrection of the dead, of the people that were dead for thousands of years, will rise up, and what we call the resurrection of the dead. the bodies will come back and the soul of life will enter them. But now God says the interpretation of that metaphor, of that reality, they're both true. But it's also referring to the return of the house of Israel, how the Jews return back to being a living nation again, the house of Israel. How we become, Rashi says in the Gemara on Sanhedrin 92, how this is a reference to how like a dead, just like the dead leaves the grave, leaves the grave and comes back to life, so too the nation of Israel leaves the exile and comes back to be, like I said at the beginning, a renewed, restored nation in its land. But here, I'm explicit here. This is the house of Israel. And what point does this come in history? There's a point of history where the Jews say our bones are totally dry. There seems to be no hope of rebirth on the national level. Jews are running around the world in exile, luxurious, difficult exiles, but they're alive and kicking, and they're religious and doing the mitzvah, whatever. But they get to a point on the national level, there seems to be no life, no chance of a rebirth. Our bones are totally dry on the national level. Avdat tikvatenu, our hope is lost. To be a nation again? How can that be? We're so scattered and persecuted and exiled and fractured. To come back to the land of Israel? No nation has ever come back after an exile like that. And so it seems like our hope is lost. Nigzarno, that's the decree, we're finished. At that point in history, that lowest ebb of history, which seems like all is finished, what can we say? The Holocaust, God forbid, the final solution, that's it. At that point, God says, now get up, you prophet, and say to them, Ko amar Hashem, thus says God, Hinei ani poteach et kivrotechem, I will open your graves, where you seem to be lying and dead, national death. Va'aleiti etchem mikivrotechem, I will open up and raise you from your graves, my nation. Ve'eveti etchem el admat Yisrael, I'll bring you to the land of Israel. So what are the graves? What's the graveyard? Galut, the exile. I will open up your grave. Why is it called the graveyard? The Jews are alive, like I said. They are religious, hundreds of thousands of years of Jewish literature and Torah and development. But again, the national level, the name of God that's revealed through the nation living with those four institutions that we mentioned, of the kingdom, Jewish sovereignty, the Sanhedrin, the prophecy, and the Beit HaMikdash. Those are the vehicles, the national framework, to be a kingdom of priests and holy nation. That's what the goal is. It says in Shemot 19, before the 10 Commandments were given, you are to be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Again, the nation is the vehicle to bring down, to receive that energy, that divine, for the world. That's the conduit. There's holy people all over the world. There's holy non-Jews. You can be religious, holy, spiritual, moral. And the opposite, Jews can be not so holy and perfect, etc. But the vehicle of godliness is not holy individuals, as we saw once, and you should look again, if you learn the famous important chapter of the Maharal in Netzach Yisrael, chapter 11, the distinction between collective holiness and individual holiness. The individual level, that, again, is up to totally free will. You want, you're in, you join, you want to be holy, you want to get close to God, you can get closer and closer. It's up to you, like Noach, he distinguished between Noach and Avram Avinu. Noach, you can be holy and righteous and good. But it starts with him, it's up to, it's his choice. It can go up and also go down. By Avram Avinu, he points out, and he explains to us why the Torah doesn't introduce Avram Avinu like it does with Noach. It says he was holy and righteous, and then God spoke to him. You're good, you come to me, I'll come to you, you're worthy. But by Avram Avinu, it just says, Lech lecha, go, get up and go to Eretz Yisrael. There's no introduction, he was worthy, he was holy, he was righteous. Then God, oh, you're a good guy, I'll come to you. No. And the Maharal says specifically the Torah was silent, not because he wasn't holy and righteous, but to tell you that his righteousness, or God's coming to him and making him the nation of Israel, was not dependent on his being worthy and righteous and holy. It's an absolute, with the divine creation, that this is my name will become through you. You are the vehicle. The nation of Israel that you are about to become, you're the forerunner, the father of this nation, is not dependent on that holiness. That you might have thought, if the Torah says he was holy and religious, and that's why God came to him. And if not, not. Or that God can leave him. If the Jews don't become holy, then, like the Christians say, that God left you. You see, he left you, and you weren't so religious, didn't live up to his ideals, so God left you. As if it's up to man, it's a club. You join if you want, if not, you're out. But rather, God said that the Torah teaches us why it's silent, so to speak. But the Maral elaborates on that, that it's not dependent on that whatsoever. What he calls it, ahava shelo tluya b'davar, like in Pirkei Avot. A love that is not dependent on anything. It's not dependent on any factor, any human. God created, this is the essence of this creation. Like it says, and we mentioned a lot, the verse in Yeshayahu 43:21, Amzu yitzarti li tilati yisaperu. This nation have I created unto me to say my praise in the name, to say my name in the world, to say my praise, to say my... This is the vehicle. I created, like I said, metal that conducts. It's not a matter of... That's there's facts of creation, objective reality of how the world is built such that there's a vehicle that brings down not just electricity, whatever, that brings down godliness to this world, morality, holiness, the infinite, the beyond this world into this world. And that starts with Avraham Avinu. That's the nation of Israel, the collective nation. Individuals can indeed stray from that, reveal that or not reveal that. We have free will, but not on the collective level. The collective level is this divinely created soul, that inner essence, that neshama, Knesset Yisrael, or Shekhinah, different words, the divine presence. That's the life source of this nation. That is not a product of our worthiness, belief, agreement, or disagreement. That is the fact. That is the objective reality, the divinely created reality. Outside of Israel, the condition for that, like we said at the beginning, to reveal that soul, there's conditions for life. Like we have to have oxygen to continue life. We have different things to enable life to continue. The flow of that divine conductivity, electricity to the world, divine energy to the world, is the Jewish people in the land of Israel, like the two pieces of metal that I said, like middle metaphor, a gross metaphor, but that enables this conductivity of something beyond this world, this divinity, this goodness, this holiness, these ideals of eternal good and holy and justice and truth to come to this world. Blessing of that God wishes to bestow. He created the world to do good. Tov Hashem lakol, we say in Ashrei, right? God is good to all, and we wish to bestow this total goodness. And the vehicle for that, for all of creation, to connect that finite to the infinite. How do you connect you can't connect the finite infinite, but that's what we say the blessing, right? Of mafli lasot. And when you come back from the bathroom, after there's the blessing of mafli lasot. You do a wonder. So in the Shulchan Aruch, he explains what's the wonder that connects the physical and the spiritual, to connect the infinite to the finite, that life to the physical body. How do you connect the source of life? That's the miracle. That's the wonder. And on the collective level, the universal level, the full level, my big name to reveal is through the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And that's why we saw the previous chapter in Yechezkel 36, that outside of Israel, it's a chilul Hashem. My name is desecrated. My name is unable to come to full expression. Because by definition, not because you're not good Jews, you're holy Jews, rabbi, scholar, but the vehicle is not holy individual. It's this nation, this collective body of the Jews and of Israel enables this receiving of that divine soul, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, to come to the world. Outside of which, it's a desecration of my name. My name is not able to come to expression. Here it's called the graveyard. The Jews are alive, no? Yes, but not the living nation, the nation that shows and reveals God's totality in all of existence, of holiness that's revealed not just in the private life, what the Gemara says in Brachot, page 8a, the 4 cubits of halacha. Outside of Israel, you have the 4 cubits, each one in his private domain, keeping Shabbat and Kashrut and very holy, learning Torah. But the name of God that comes to an empire with agriculture, commerce, industry, everything is holy. Everything is infused with and imbued with and driven by and exposes holiness in all of life. That no individual can do. The minimum unit that can expose all of God is when you have all, the national life. So for that, God created this vehicle of this holy nation. And that's what it means that we make the blessing on the Torah. Shebacharbanu mikol amim. You've chosen us for all the nations. Not that we're better as individuals. The nation, you chose us, you made us this collective life force that is this objective goodness in the world that comes and expresses through the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Again, individuals have free will, that we can live up to that or not. But ultimately we will, because everything has to return to its ultimate nature for which it was created. Not individually. People can go through their whole lives and not live up to it. But the nation will come back to itself because, like the Maral says, the beginning of Netzach Yisrael, everything like that which is against nature has to return to it. Like a ball in the air comes down. Nature against nature is not natural, and will not continue. The inner force, the inner energy, the inner truth of Am Yisrael will demand its expression somehow, like it's coming today, sometimes in more difficult ways, but the Neshama will wake up. We will come back to, we'll see, that's for this process that we're talking about here. How the nation comes back to its inner spirit, to live according to it. So first we see there's two stages. First, there'll be the physical body, the physical return of the bones, juxtaposition, in other words, of the bones together. They're still not one. They're still not, so to speak, unified. They're in the land, but there's still arguments and difficult, and each one sees themselves as alone. Then comes the second level, the spirit. The rabbis explain as this unifying force. The neshama now comes in. The neshama that unifies all those limbs to one. To become one, to feel as one, to live as one, to realize one is, it's not something else. There's no jealousy and hatred. It's like we mentioned the Gemara, the famous Talmud Bab, Yerushalmi, in the Darim, of the commandment of lo tikom velo titor, not to take revenge, not to be jealous. I don't know, if someone hits you, you want to hit him back or take revenge, but even if you don't, you still bear a grudge. So how can you expect, humanly possible, not even to bear a grudge, to remember what you did to me and what? But the Gemara gives the example, right, of the person cutting a piece of meat, and his hand slips and cuts a little bit of the left hand as well. With the left hand, the Gemara says, will the left hand now rise up and avenge the right hand? It's one body, it's yourself, it won't help. Now, not only did my left hand hurt, now my right hand is, it's one unit, one entity. The problem is, if the body, so to speak, is anesthetized, then the left hand feels, I don't know, I'm alone, I'll get back to the right. You're two different, I see you as something else. But the truth is, if it's normal and healthy and functioning properly, where the neshama is infused in the body, living, then you can't, never dawn upon you to hit the other one. Like the rabbis explain that Yerushalmi, because we're one body, we're one unit, we're one entity. That's what Am Yisrael really is. And in the exile, that is, I don't say impossible, but it's not part of the reality. In other words, you're not living as one body, you are separate. That neshama is in the heavenly abode, has no vehicle and body that through which it's revealed. Like you mentioned, the person in the hospital, God forbid, and the kidney machine, the lung machine, he's like separate and all over. He's not alive. You see all the parts are there, but he's not. The life is when the neshama flows through that body and unifies them all, living as one, this giant entity with the different functions. There's no room for hatred and jealousy. I need you and you need me. Together we make up this symphony orchestra. We need all the instruments. That comes back that's the second stage here, when the neshama, the spirit, comes back. And that's what it says in Yeshayahu. Where does that take place? Only in Eretz Yisrael. Noten neshama la'amaleh, it says. I give the neshama upon the people, on the nation, upon this land. That's the condition of life. God created the world. Why not in America? Why not wherever the Jews are? You have 1,000 Jews, 1,000,000 Jews in America. So the neshama comes down there, and now there are Jewish people. No, you see, historically it wasn't, but it can't be that way. The neshama also has conditions, so to speak, for, like there's physics, there's metaphysics, conditions of how that neshama is revealed to the world. The Jewish people, sovereign in the land of Israel, that's the vehicle that enables this blessing, divine content to be revealed. As we'll see more and more in the sources as we go on, the rabbis say these things very clearly and very strongly. And even in the Talmud Bavli, right? The rabbis in Bavel also didn't say that word, they recognize that the Torah, this is the conditions of how God's name is revealed. But these two chapters especially, here it's called the desecration of God's name in exile. And here it's called the graveyard. As we'll see, the Vilna Gaon writes on this. Going out to Galut is the leaving of the soul from the body. You have a body without a soul. You see the body. The Jews are still alive. There's two individual branches, like a chicken without its head, right? It goes on, the reflexes continue. They see, we're alive. What are we missing? And the Jews get used to that. 105, 200,000, 2,000 years. Remember, I have that Los Angeles Times article I always quote, that there's nothing an Orthodox Jew needs that isn't here. What are we missing? We have Shabbat, we have kashrut, kosher. They picture of the kosher delicatessen with the, the bakery with the Jewish, the chocolate Magen David. Like, what are we missing here? Kosher, 30 kosher deli. The nation, the kingdom, the prophecy, the Sanhedrin, the Beit HaMikdash, the national vehicle that enables godliness, not just this 4 cubits of halakha. We get so used to the 4 cubits, think that's all there is. Rabbis give the example of a son of a king. He's sent out of the palace and he gets used to being a pauper. He's whatever. He comes back to the palace and he doesn't know. He can't even imagine what grandeur is awaiting him. What should be. He asks for another piece. Can I have maybe a bigger piece of bread, another slice of bread? He doesn't realize now you're a king. You're the prince. The prince. You're coming back to grandeur, your fullness. You're not even aware of the concepts of what is coming back to the greatness of what Am Yisrael, what blessing. What do you mean greatness? In other words, greatness means the spiritual levels of holiness, of goodness, of truth that will be revealed is awaiting us now. And we come back here, just let us have peace and quiet, get rid of the enemy, and just go back to what it was in peace and quiet. Now the nation is waking up, this process of the second stage now that we're in, of returning the soul of life, the spirit of life. What are we fighting for? You can't fight without that. We see what happens, like in Russia, people say that if you don't have that spirit, what are you fighting for? The soul, Putin sends them out, but the soldiers don't know what are we doing here? You can't win a war without that spirit. The Jewish people are, when there's this threat of our life, then that neshama is tickled, is woken up, is threatened. Then there's an awakening of that inner source, that transcending source that the Jews even themselves weren't aware of. But that's that super conscious, that transcending ideal, that neshama, that shekhinah that's in the Jewish people, that ruach Hashem that is upon you, that is coming back now. There's awakening up, and we're headed for big things with Hashem. So here it says, back to verse 13, I will open up your graves and take you out of your graves and bring you back to the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am God when I open up your graves. V'natati ruchi b'chem, and I will put my spirit of life in you. Now that you're back in Israel, now that's the condition. Now there will be the second stage of not just the bones together, let's live in peace and quiet and try to get along. But as we saw up till now, there was argument and fighting, and everyone has their own ideas, and God forbid it looked like a civil war where we're headed. All of a sudden, overnight, people say they won't go to the army, we're not going to volunteer anywhere, we're not going to... All of a sudden, all that is forgotten totally, this overnight, literally. This new spirit, this new unified spirit. Again, we have to clarify it and understand it. What is the content of that spirit? It's not just nice patriotism. We have to be aware of that is the unique blessing for the world that is now coming back to it, being restored and then re-energized and coming back to give us life again. But that's where we're going now. That's what's taking place. I'll put my spirit in you, and you shall live, and I'll put you on your land, and you shall know that I am God. The truth is, the prophecy goes on to talk about how that kingdom, that renewed Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel as a nation, comes back. And maybe I'll just read it quickly. The word of God came to me. It says, you son of man, take one stick and write upon it. What does it say? Yehuda and the children of Israel, his friends. And take another stick and write upon what? Write around on the second stick. So there's two sticks. The prophet is told to take these two sticks. You should look in the Malbim commentary here. Maybe we'll get to that. But take one of Yehuda and one of Yosef and Ephraim. The Malbim explains this as referring to what we call the two messianic functions of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, which the Vilna Gaon and the Kol HaTorah, the students of the Vilna Gaon, wrote down his teachings about the redemption process, and he oversimply stated the Mashiach ben Yosef, you can call it what we just said, the physical redemption, the first stage, the ingathering of the exiles and the building of the land. What seems to be a natural a nation coming back alive again, the economy, defense and security, and the tangible physical side of the national existence. Sheikh ben David, Yehuda, is already the Yehuda Kodsho, right? We say in Halev, the spiritual side. They're all from Hashem. They're both these, what he calls the Vilna Gaon, right? The hand of God revealed in a natural way to rebuild the land of Israel, to ingather the exiles and rebuild the land of Israel. The second stage is also this divine infusion, divine assistance in bringing back and returning what it says here, I'll put my spirit in you. That's the other side, the kingdom of Mashiach ben David. And then he says, take these two sticks and karev otam echad el echad, bring them together, bring them close to each other, and they shall be to one stick. There'll be one in your hand. No longer two kingdoms, no longer two different things. I thought they were separate. You have call it the secular and the religious camps. The two camps, they thought each one was doing their own thing and mutually exclusive. It's one hating the other, God forbid, and one against, not realizing that they're the two sides of the same coin. The physical gets its life from the spiritual, and the spiritual gives the life and meaning and the direction to the physical. You have to have both. But unfortunately, the stages are such sometimes that each one sees his function as the, how do you say, biladi, exclusive. Me and only me. Ani v'afsiod, the pasuk says. Me and only me. And there's a reason for that each one has to indeed focus on his job. That if he sees like everything is important, everything is equal, everything is needed, so like you, how do you say, a jack of all trades and a master of none, whatever. You like do everything. You flatten it, you lower these things, you're not focused on any one thing. They're all important, so maybe I shouldn't be doing. No, you have to be focused on yours and thinking that, not the ideal. The ideal should be an understanding, I'm doing my job to participate, to bring about I'm playing the instrument, I'm the best drummer and he's the best violinist, and together we make up the whole orchestra. But unfortunately, sometimes people aren't so holistic that if they have this thing of the over collective view, then there's no really significance to my individual contribution. Let's focus on doing it properly. So no, you have to focus totally on your thing. Ideally, with the understanding that you're a part of, you fix your individual contribution in the part of this collective body. But if not, sometimes it comes in the thinking that I'm the only one that's important. Everyone else, heck with everyone else. My job is the important, only my instrument, and this. Now that causes you to totally develop your individual function. And ultimately, when all the individual functions are built properly healthy, then comes this unifying spirit. I'll put my spirit upon you. The bones are back. But each one, again, is, like I said, friction between them all. And then what we witnessed 2 months ago. And then comes this new spirit of unity, of harmony. That Rav Kook writes in, actually, if I can find it in English, chapter 19. There's different parts of here. Just read it quickly for that principle that I just said of chapter 18. He talks about these three camps: the religious, the national, and the liberal, the universal. And there's one that's above them that shows how and recognizes that they're all parts. All parts are needed, but that is also connected. But I just wanted to give you this thing of the order of redemption. This is in chapter 19 of the rites of Renaissance in Rav Kook. The order of redemption in the natural Renaissance in the land of Israel must advance according to the order of the prophecy that I shall sow the house of the prophet Yirmiyahu, I believe, says, I will replant the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah, the seed of man and the seed of beast. There's one is that it's the seed of man, the spiritual side, and the seed of the Be'emah seems to be more animalistic. No, that which we have in common with the physical side. Not that it's derogatory, but there's something, the aspect of the physical side that sees itself, unfortunately, as alone. But that he says, and the Gemara says on that, the seed of man apart, separate, and the seed of beast apart. Each one develops separately. The perfection of form must be created. The souls who incline to the practical building, settling the land, and national aspiration, let's call that infused by the Mashiach ben Yosef, right? The stick of, must be formed with all the strident hues necessary for this characteristic. No, they have to bring it to total fulfillment. They have to focus on their job, not to be, how do you say in Hebrew, posel? How do you say in English? Right, scattered, like you're doing your job, but you're looking, maybe that's important, maybe I should be doing that. Now, you have to be focused. And usually people it's either one or the other, doing my job or the other. If you focus on other things, like I said, you're a jack of all trades, but you're not. It has to be totally fulfilled to its maximum. And men of the transcendental souls of the life and the spirit and the pleasures of the soul, who publicize and shine the supernal light of the Lord on the nation and the world, will also be realized in their fullness. Look what he says here. That's what I brought it for. It is precisely the full types who influence nicely one another. In Hebrew, אנשים דווקא טיפוסים מלאים משפיעים יפה אלו על אלו ומתחברים יחד ליצירת גבייה לאומית אורגנית גדולה. Read it back in Hebrew again. In other words, dafka full characters, not half-baked each one. Then you have a half-baked nation. In other words, it has to be each one, each side has to build itself totally. Like I said, all the instruments have to be fully experts in their field. And then, dafka full types will work together to influence one another and join together to the formation of a great organic national body, upon which shines the light of life of a powerful holy soul. This holy soul, that's a future soul that's coming back, this neshama that's returning to the world, this final redemption, requires a strong body and physical. Both sides have to be very strong. Only upon that shines the light of life of a powerful holy soul. So that was this. There's also a chapter in Orta Kodesh. Rav Kook writes, he likens it to two saplings, that if you put them too close to each other, then each one takes the minerals, the nutrients from the land, and they both suffer, so to speak. You have to separate them, let them grow properly, and then. So it also talks about, I think it's in the English translation somewhere else. Anyway, but this idea of full development, so unfortunately, it doesn't have to be that way. If you have this bigger perspective that we're trying to learn and teach, and be those that have that ideal understanding of the holistic approach, that all is necessary, all parts are needed. You need all parts of the picture, all parts of the puzzle, all instruments of the orchestra. But people usually on the level of just focusing on their own, and that has a job, because again, that enables them to totally develop their contribution. And then comes the final picking up of the curtain. The conductor gets up to right, you have this cacophony, they're all tuning up, all the instruments. And then the conductor comes and says, or doesn't say, starts his thing, and then you see the beautiful harmony of all the instruments together. After tuning up and practicing, becoming what they're supposed to be, then comes in Atati Ruchi B'chem V'Yichitem. Then will come up this spirit, this unifying soul, the one, the neshama of Am Yisrael, which can come sometimes with problem, in other words, difficulty. To wake up, sometimes we need, the conductor has to tap on our heads and whatever. Like it says, the malach will come and hit you and say, wake up and grow. But nevertheless, that's what's taking place now, this return of the Spirit of God, the inner unifying force, the neshama, the shekhinah, the divine presence. So here he talks about how it comes in the first stages of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Excuse me. I'll put them together. And again, the Malbim talks about that it seems the beginning, the majority is the secular Zionism, is Yosef, the Ephraim is like the problematic tribe, you could call it, right? The two kingdoms in Israel that were in the time of after Shlomo. The Ephraim was more the idol worshipping and more, call it problematic, let's say, not as opposed to in Yerushalayim, the Beit HaMikdash and Yehuda.
And the Eskel is the end of the northern kingdom. It's after the.
The prophet is referring to the future, to our days.
Oh, I think what he means is when was this taking place?
He was in Babylon, right?
Part of his prophecy was in Babel. When was he? It didn't take place. This is the future.
No,
this is the prophecy about the future.
When
was Yechezkel living?
Yeah.
I can tell you. We have those.
He died in Babylon.
What do we have Yechezkel here? This is the Shoftim, Nevi'im. So, even the other chart. Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu doesn't have Yechezkel. So he went, like he said, he was taken to, at the beginning, it says he went to Bavel, Nahar Pakur, his prophecies, which we'll talk about. Can you have prophecy outside the land? We're talking about, yes, at the end of the first temple, the destruction. But why doesn't it have...
You got two sides on that one.
Yeah, but in the Nevi'im, the Yechezkel. So Yechezkel with Yirmiyahu here. 3300. The temple destroyed in 3338. He's from here, it says 32 something to 30. Anyway, the destruction of the temple.
33. So he went to Bavel with
Okay. It says the beginning of the prophecy. We'll see when we get to that. The beginning of Yechezkel. Hayohaya, the word of God was upon him. Hayohaya, the rabbi said, what do you mean Hayohaya? It was. We're taking it to Bavel, Nahar Pakur in Bavel. How can you have prophecy? We'll see the sources in Moed Katan 25. The Gemara says there's no prophecy outside the land of Israel. So how did he receive it? So the verse says there, Hayohaya, because he had it in Eretz Yisrael, he could continue it. There's no direct link of the infinite, the divine to outside the land of Israel. It goes through Eretz Yisrael. Then you can get an extension cord, in my words.
So he was born in Jerusalem, and then when he went with the exiles from Nebuchadnezzar, so he was already in Israel, then he went.
Okay, that's what the Gemara, that's what the first verse something you see there, what Rashi brings down, and the Gemara says, Hayohaya. What does it mean, this, I don't know how to say it in English, what kind of grammar, or grammatical function of trans, whatever, Hayohaya. He was there. Because he was there, if he started his prophecy here, then you can continue. As we'll see, it applies to other things. The connection of the finite to the infinite, to the divine, is through Eretz Yisrael. That's the vehicle. That's the gate of heaven, right? All the prayers go up through Eretz Yisrael. So it has to start here. The direct link is to here. From here, we'll talk about the Sanhedrin and other forces, or other applications of this, how it continues outside. Like a continuation of, but it's a lower level, a totally different quantum level of outside. So much so that it's called the desecration of God's name. But every Jew in America, you put on tefillin and does a mitzvah, it adds a light of God to the world. But it's a total different level. But that, we have a lot more to talk about, we've spoken about, but we have to stop here. But that's what it says. Ultimately, you'll have these two kings will come together, there'll be a united kingdom, and we will have the name of God. I'll gather you from all the countries, bring you to the land, and you'll become a goy echad ba'aretz, one nation in the land, and one king upon you. And the right, the kingdom of David, David, right, the kingdom David, and verse David will be king over you again, the king Mashiach ben David, and it'll be very good. And that's what we're approaching soon, a very return, but not just to peace and quiet again, but to a level that we haven't had for a long time, of returning of prophecy, of level of energy, of goodness, of holiness that is approaching. B'ezrat Hashem, prepare yourselves, because we're in big times. Go through.